so this is going to be Objective 14, Part 2. Yesterday we talked about converting radians to degrees, degrees to radians. Today we are going to talk about coterminal angle. Okay, so first of all, you need to understand like where the angle comes from. So the standard position of an angle means that the vertex is at the origin, and so I guess if I drew it, and you had an angle here, the vertex is at the origin, and then the angle starts at the positive x-axis. So it's always going to start here, which we know, okay? And then it opens up from there and we rotate it around. But wherever you stop, the measure of the degree, you know, if that opens up, I don't know, 60 degrees, then that's your angle, okay? But that's the standard position. It's going to start here and then it may rotate all the way around. So if, I will tell you this, you know, like you're going to have to use your rotations because we're going to do more than 360. So, but again, you're still going to start, I need a different color. You're still going to start here, you follow me, on the x-axis, and then like it may rotate around once and then some more, okay? If they are coterminal, let's just take this first angle that I have here. Basically, if they're coterminal, that means that they terminate in the same spot, even if they rotate more than once. Do you understand? So like, you know, if this is 60 degrees, I want to know if I rotated around another 360, where would I be? How much rotation? If I go and still end here. How'd you get 420? Very good. And so again, the name of the game, so I'm going to tell you right now, 60 degrees and 420 degrees are coterminal. Does that make sense? Because they terminate in the same position. Co means they share it. They share the same termination, the same terminal point. Does that make sense? So you can rotate. What if I went backwards 360? What if I started up here at 60 degrees and I went and I rotated this way? What kind of rotation would that be? No, not negative. It's negative 360 from that point, but where do you start? You actually start from here. So what would the rotation to here be? Negative 300. So I just gave you all three of these are coterminal. Does that make sense? Because they terminate in the same spot. Does that make sense? It just depends on the rotations of them. Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Okay. We are going to find two positive angles and two negative angles that are coterminal with 30 degrees. Okay. And I'm giving you the angle theta. Again, theta is just a variable. Okay. The American alphabet is only 26 letters long. That's not long enough for everything that we need. So we go over to the Greek alphabet and start borrowing some of their variables. They're just variables though. Okay. So let me give you like 2 minutes. Talk to your group. See if you can come up with, I want two positive angles other than 30. 30 cannot be included. Does that make sense? And two negative angles that could be coterminal with 30. All right. What'd you come up with? I hear 390. What else? 750. Negative 330. Negative 690. Anybody come up with those numbers? Two of them. Which two did you come up with? Okay, so you got the 390 and the negative 330? Okay, so good, good. That's good. All right, so we started at 30 degrees. Okay, I'm at 30 degrees. Everybody understand that? I want to know, like, and I'll do them in colors. I want to know another, like, I can't just go 30. I want to know another rotation that would end me in that same position. Okay? Always starting here. So if I rotate all the way around here, how much is that? Plus another 30 would be, this one would be 390. Does that make sense? Because I went all the way around plus another 30. And that would end me in the same position. Okay? All right, I'm going to keep going in a positive direction. So what's another option? I could go around how many times? 2. I could go all the way around. That's 360. I could go around again and then up. And that would be how much? 720 plus another 30, right? And so basically the name of the game is you're just going to be adding 360 or subtracting 360, because and today, you know, like the other day I said adding 180 or adding 360 depending on whether you're going half circle, whole circle. But today if we're going to be coterminal, that means I'm going to be going what? Full 360 rotations. So the name of the game, basically I took 30, you could just add 360 and then you could go around again and add another 360. Does that make sense? So this one would put you up at 750. Okay. Then I want 2 negatives, so that means I'm going to still start here. If I go all the way around, I'm not doing a full 360. Okay, now you could do 360 and then subtract 30, or you could just take 30 degrees and subtract. You want to go backwards another 360. Okay, so that's going to be negative 330. Okay, and then again, everybody says, how do you get the last one? So we rotated once, maybe we need to go again. If you go all the way around, so this is, if you went around twice, it would be 720, but then minus 30 would be 750. Or again, you could just take 30 and do what? Minus 360, minus 360. This to here, that's negative 330. If you do it again, it's 750. Oh, I'm sorry, not 790. Thank you very much. Negative 690. Thank you very much. Not adding 30, but subtracting 30. Okay. All right, so let's look at another one. All right, this time I want you to find 2 positive angles and 2 negative angles that are coterminal with pi over 3. Okay, so you're going to have to do it in terms of pi. All right. What do you think? Do you know any of them? Want to take a stab at it? All right, I hear negative 5 pi over 3. I hear 10 pi over 3. I hear 7 pi over 3. I hear negative 11 pi over 3. I hear 7 pi over 3. I hear 10 pi over 3. I hear 13 pi over 3. Huh? That's okay. I'm just like, shout out your answers. And it's okay if they're wrong because we are just now first learning this, okay? So don't be afraid. All right, let's talk about pi over 3. Where's pi over 3 at, by the way? 60 degrees. Okay, good. All right, so there's your angle, okay? Here's the angle, pi over 3. Let's talk about, first of all, let's just rotate like normal. If I'm going in terms of 3s, we know halfway would be 3 pi over 3. We know a full 360 rotation is going to end up being 6 pi over 3. So I told you the name of the game is adding 2 pi or subtracting 2 pi, but you're going to have to turn it into the denominator that you're using. Does that make sense? So really what we're going to be adding is 6 pi over 3, right? If I go one full rotation, so basically if I go all the way around, that's 6 pi over 3. Everybody understand that? And then I go another 1 pi over 3, What's that going to hit me at? 7 pi over 3. 6 pi over 3 plus 1 pi over 3 is 7 pi over 3. Okay, so that one's correct. Okay, so let's talk about if I go 2 full rotations. So this would be 3 pi over 3. This would be 6 pi over 3. This would be 9 pi over 3. This would be 12 pi over 3. And then another pi over 3 would be 13 pi over 3. Okay, so now let's go in a negative direction. Okay, so you could say, like, you go all the way around, that is 6 pi over 3, but then we're going to do what? Back it up 1 pi over 3. So what would that be? Negative 5 pi over 3. Okay, so this one's correct. If you go twice, all the way around is negative 6 pi over 3. All the way around would be negative 12 pi over 3. Everybody understand that? And if you back it up 1, it would be what? 11 pi over 3. Or you could simply just say, like, this is going to give you 7 pi over 3. You could take pi over 3. If I go twice, that's going to be what? 12 pi over 3. And so that would give you your 13 pi over 3. Or you could take pi over 3 and subtract 6 pi over 3. And that's going to give you negative 5 pi over 3. And then you could go pi over 3 minus 12 pi over 3. That's going to be negative 11 pi over 3. Okay? Any questions on that? Did I lose anybody? This right here? Y'all don't like that? Y'all like drawing it better? Yeah. Good, because that's good that you can visualize it. That means you really, really understand it. But all I'm doing here is I'm adding 360. That's a 360 rotation, 6 pi over 3. So 1 pi over 3 plus 6 pi over 3 is 7 pi over 3. And then 2 rotations, which is 12 pi over 3. So that's all that is. Do you understand what I did? And then you just subtract 1 pi over 3 minus 360, 6 pi over 3, is negative 5 pi over 3. Okay? So how many are going to stick with the drawings and rotating it around? How many actually kind of like that? Okay. Does that make sense? It's just we're adding 360 every time. Adding 360 every time. Or in this case, 2 pi. Okay. So I would like for you to determine, are the 2 angles coterminal? Yes or no? Are they coterminal? So let me give you 3 minutes, talk in your groups. These are 2 separate problems, by the way. Okay. Well, just make them 7, but make this maybe part A, part B. So this, are those 2 coterminal, and then are these 2 coterminal? All right, let's look at the first one. Yes or no? Yes. How do you figure it out? Like, I mean, you could draw negative 30, and someone said, you know, like, do you start at 330? Do you start at negative 30? It doesn't matter. Okay, I just want to see, so I went negative 30. So if I rotate all the way around, would that be the same as 330? Yes. Okay, and you can just take this and add 360 to it and see if you get that. Okay, so that one's a yes. How about this one? Okay, so let's talk about 5 pi over 6. Okay, so 5 pi over 6 is going to be in which quadrant? In the second. Very good, because if I go all the way, halfway around, I'm going to be at 6 pi over 6. So 5 pi over 6 is going to be somewhere here. Okay, so let's talk about this. If I go all the way around the 6 pi over 6, then keep going, that would be 12 pi over 6. And so this would be 18 pi over 6, but if I back it up, where would this be? 17 pi over 6. Okay, so we know 17 pi over 6 is coterminal with 5 pi over 6. Okay, keep going to see if it gets it, because it might rotate twice. Does that make sense? It might rotate 3 times. It might rotate 4 times. You might have to go around, like around and around and around and around the circle. Okay, so if this is 18, everybody understand where I'm at? What would this one be? 24 pi over 6, okay? And then where would this one be? 30, and if I back it up, what would it be? 29 pi over 6, if I back it up one. So I don't think 27 pi over 6 is going to be coterminal. So this one would be a no. Okay? Because if I counted 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, but I want to go to here. I want to go back 1 pi over 6. And so minus 1 would be 29. Okay? Okay. So I want an angle that's between 0 and 360 that is coterminal with the angle that's 1290. Okay, but I want the one, don't give me any old coterminal angle. I want the one that's between 0 and 360. So what do we think? 210? So can anyone tell me, let's just, like, how would I figure out where 1290 is? Like, if you were going to draw this one, you'd have to start going round and round. So this would be how much? And then 1080. And then how much more would you need to go to get to 12? If I went all the way around again, how much? I'd be at 14. That's too much. So this is what, 1080? Is that what y'all said? So I know that it's not one, I can't go all the way around again. Does that make sense? So I'm going to take 1290 minus 1080, and that's going to give me 210. So I know I need to go another 210 degrees. Does that make sense? And that's going to be your coterminal angle. Okay? Again, a shorter way to do it, you could just take 1290, and so if you're here, if that's 1290, you can subtract 360, meaning I rotate it around, I end the same place. Subtract 360, I rotate it around, then subtract 360, and then eventually you'll get to 210. Any questions about that? Okay. I think this is the last one, I think. So I want you to find an angle with the measure between 0 and 2 pi, okay? And I do want to, just for our relay race, whether, I'm not sure if we have time today to do it or not, we'll see. Maybe we can get one in today. I got 4 of them. So you may see something like this. Find an angle that's between, and it looks like this. And that just says that theta is what? Between 0 and 2 pi. It's the same thing as me saying between 0 and 2 pi. So if you see this terminology, just realize, find an angle that's between, theta is between 0 and 2 pi, that is coterminal with 17 pi over 6. All right, so what'd you end up with? 5 pi over 6. Do I need to go over it? You sure? Anybody need to see it? Okay, let me just quickly go through it. So, like, if I graph this one, do you like to graph them? No, you like to, like, subtract them. Okay, so here's what you need to understand, though. You need to understand what one full rotation is. Okay, does that make sense? In terms of 6. So this would be how much? And so one full rotation is going to be, so if you're into the name of adding 360 and subtracting 360 or adding 2 pi, in this case, we're going to take 17 pi over 6, and we're going to subtract, what's one full rotation in terms of 6? 12 pi over 6. And that's going to equal 5 pi over 6. And I know, please listen, I know that 5 pi over 6, how do I know that 5 pi over 6 is less than, it's between 0 and 2 pi? How do I know that 5 pi over 6 is between 0 and 2 pi? Right, because it's under 12 pi over 6. Do you understand? We know one full rotation is 12 pi over 6. So between 0 and 2 pi, you got 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, all the way to 12. So you know that 5 pi over 6 is less than 12 over 6, 12 pi over 6. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, let me make sure that that's the end. Yep, and we're not doing this practice, so 40, 40.